So recently I saw Gakkou Gurashi and it was definitely something interesting. Now usually when I review television shows, I'm not very cautious when it comes to spoilers. Maybe it's something I should change, but unless it's a movie that recently came out, I always assume the person watching this video has already seen the show. But with Gakkou Gurashi, I'll have to spread as much spoiler warnings as I can. So if you haven't seen the show, I strongly recommend you walk away, as it is impossible to talk about this show without addressing spoilers, and you need to be as uninformed as you can be before watching this show. So essentially, this anime tells a story about 4 girls who are hiding from zombies in school, as it is the safest place they can be. Now, the part about the zombies was something that was only revealed at the very end of the first episode, which, judging by how they handle it, I can safely say it was a good twist. However, I was already aware this show involved zombies even before I first watched it, but one thing I was not expecting was Yuki'S Delusions throughout the entire series. If you've ever seen an adorable dumb girl with a cheerful and joyful personality in every other anime, then you already know what to expect from her character. But the thing that makes her interesting is that unlike the rest of the cast, she seems to be oblivious to the fact that the school is destroyed and there are freaking zombies outside. But the darkest twist was in episode 6, where it's revealed that one of the characters we met in the first few episodes, Megumi, wasn't actually alive and Yuki kept projecting her in her mind. Now, I grew to like Megami. She seems like a nice person who cares for her students, gets embarrassed sometimes, and wants to be the best teacher she can be. It also helps that we got to know her by just watching her interact with the girls, mostly Yuki, stylized like a normal slice of life comedy. I do think that by creating this reassuring and comfortable environment with the main characters, it manages to make those moments where the show gets dramatic really special and all the more shocking. I can't imagine some people having an issue with how the show seems to be a mixed bag of 2 different and almost opposite genres, but personally, the tone variety that the show has feels more realistic. It also helps that whenever the show wants to invoke a certain emotion, it knows how to make the distinction and avoid making a scene feel emotionally conflicting. Plus, the show knew how to embrace those emotions with tremendous results. I found the humor to be mostly funny. I think the 9th episode is a good example of how the show can be funny and how likable the characters are. And as for the dramatic moments, I do appreciate how they handle the timing, with the best example being the reveal that Megumi wasn't alive in episode 6, like I mentioned earlier. But you can also tell that the show progressively tones itself down, which was a pattern that was temporarily broken in the 9th episode, which was the episodes where the girls were having the most fun and the episode had an overall lighting tone. But this was also the episode where we saw a glimpse of Megumi as a zombie, which was admittedly a scene that messed with my head really hard. This scene worked perfectly for 3 main reasons. The first was the potential damage this could have brought to Yuki, a character who has been repressing the memories of Megumi's death, deluded herself into thinking she's still alive, and is the joy of the group. By the end, she never really got to see her. In fact, Kurumi and Miki were the only ones who saw her as a zombie, but at the time, I was overwhelmed by the implications. The second reason was how this scene came out after the episode made me feel relaxed and comfortable, only for those emotions to be shredded into pieces. Looking back in hindsight, it does seem kind of obvious that the reveal as tense as this was bound to happen, given how suspiciously relaxed the episode felt at first, but given how this is partially a slice of life, it would be kind of impossible to predict this twist would happen, since it's the type of comedic and silly vibe I'd expect from this show. Well, I mean, unless this is a zombie cliche, I don't really watch zombie shows, so I don't know how frequent these types of stories happen. The third reason was the fact that Megumi was the zombie that looked the most graphic. Now, I could be wrong and I might have to watch the show again to confirm, but judging by my memories, Megumi was the only zombie that the show didn't shy away from showing her face, unlike the other zombies who mostly had this eerily dark shade covering their bodies, although in the next episode, she looked pretty much like every other zombie. I also appreciated the amount of emphasis the animators put into making the scene where Kurumi, all tied up, was about to turn into a zombie all the more dramatic, by toning down the color palettes, and you could feel the terror Yuri was experiencing. Just looking at her face, you can see someone processing the idea of her friend turning into a zombie, and the possibility that she might have to kill her. Also, the way they handled the death of the dog was golden. They managed to make me care for him, and seeing him die was pretty heartbreaking. Now, if I really had to share any complaint, some of the quote-unquote action scenes, particularly when Kurumi was fighting against the zombies, felt kind of meh. One could argue that the show is not really an action show, which that's a fair point. although there is an episode of Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid where the dragons were fighting each other and it looked pretty cool, and that show is more of a slice of life comedy than Gakkou Gurashi. But in general, this was a thrilling experience that I do not regret at all being a part of. I'd strongly recommend watching this if you want a bit of tears in your eyes. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye for now.